to Commander Central episode 143, and today I and my two good friends are going to take a look at the Commander goodies from the upcoming Throne of Eldraine set. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Gentlemen, welcome back to our podcast. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Chris, doing okay?
Wonderful.
You played some EDH this week.
Yeah, I did.
How'd that go for you?
Bunch of cheater guys that I played with. You sit down in a pod with a couple guys that you recognize, and one of them flips over a chainer, and then the other guy turned 4 Protean Hulks, and you're just like, what am I doing here?
Is that when, did you get Master of Cruelties pretty quickly?
No.
Is that what, okay. I thought that was what happened. But you did get knocked around pretty
yes.
pretty handily.
No, I'm Josh, and I mean the guys weren't doing anything broken or anything.
Okay,
it's just
right.
I wanted to harass them hard because I told them I was gonna.
Okay, well that's good. They need that. I had a couple good games, or a couple interesting games. First of all, my Vela deck looked like it was cheating. If you didn't,
it does cheat.
If you didn't know any better, and I'll relay this. I think this was turn 7, and I had the worst board state of anybody. Just because I hadn't played much. But, people were playing threats. There was a Feather deck. There was, I think it was Lazov 2.0, and he had, I think a Skithrix in the graveyard. Things were going to happen soon. I had, 3 mana rocks, but I also had an Ashnod's Altar, and I had 2 artifact lands. So, in a deck that cares about the amount of artifacts, that is pretty good. It just didn't look that impressive. And it came back around to me, and I played Tezzeret Master of the Bridge, which gives all your artifacts and planeswalkers affinity. And I just emptied my hand because I had 4 creatures and another planeswalker in my hand. And the creatures were Karn and a Mere Battlesphere and a Precursor Golem. So the Mere Battlesphere brings out 4 tokens. A Precursor Golem brings out 2 copies. Karn can turn my stuff into creatures. And then I had another Tezzeret in my hand, so I could play the Tezzeret for free. And I just did the dig down 5 for an artifact, found a Mox Opal, played that for free, played my commander for free at that point. So then I was able to Master the Bridge. His +2, I think it is, does damage everyone for every artifact I control. I think I had 23 artifacts at that point. So I dinged everybody for 23. I animated all my mana rocks with Karn. Actually, I didn't need to spend any mana for any of this stuff. So I was still sitting at all the mana rocks, so I turned them all into creatures with Karn, swung and hit everybody for 3 or 4 each. And then just sacked everything to Ashnod's Altar for the Vela triggers. And so I took everybody from 40-0 on turn 7.
Cheater. That's a scumbag
It
move.
was the perfect, because it did all the things that deck does. It used the Vela triggers, it used attacking with artifacts, and it used, that are unblockable, and it used the Tezzeret.
And that's why you need to play Cancel in your decks to stop that Tezzeret from coming out.
What happened was
I agree with that.
the Lazov player had counterspelled, I think, something on the Feather player's turn. Feather went to do something, and he countered it. And I'm like, these guys have no idea what BS is about to occur right now. And it was absolute BS. However, there was one game that was maybe more interesting than that even. I was playing my Glissa deck, and I can't remember what the other player was playing, but he was playing Tatyova.
Okay.
And he was over 100 life.
Who?
And I had no idea how I was going to kill him. It comes around to me, and he's got basically lethal on board for next turn, in addition to being at 100 life. I top deck Bolas of Citadel, so I played that, and I had top out already. So then at that point, I can just trade 1 life per card.
Yep.
So I started digging down, trying to find something, and I took myself down to 10 life, and was able to find the Agonies
Embodiment
of Agonies, and put it in play for 18. But it wasn't going to kill him. But so at least I had a blocker, and I played my land for a turn, which was a Maze of Ith, which I found off there, and had to pass a turn. It goes to Tatyova, and he goes to kill everybody, but he only sent creatures that were lethal at me, not counting the maze.
Oh, no.
So I unmazed one of his attackers and lived at 2 life, and it came back to me. But at that point, I'm still I don't know what I'm going to do. Hit Gonti off the top of my library, played Gonti. I'm like, well, I might as well see what he has, and found grafted exoskeleton in the top 4. and I had that Embodiment of Agonies with flying out. So I just I cast his grafted exoskeleton on my Embodiment of Agonies and poisoned him on the crackback at 2 life against the 100 life Tatyova player. It was fantastic.
Love it.
And he's like, yep, nope, that was great. So so I had 2 ridiculous games.
Must be nice.
I didn't get hit by master cruelties at all.
Or Sire.
or Sire Insanity, whatever it was.
I gotta say, the one game that I was playing, my buddy Josh came down and he was playing his Bruna deck, and immediately took all the aggro off my Mogus deck at Bruna. Yeah. And I played a Sin Prodder on turn 3 and kept flipping over like 5 and 6 drops. I'm like, oh, we're gonna take the damage. We're gonna take the damage. I'm like, sure.
Oh, against Mogus?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That damage adds up in a hurry. Max was not there because he was playing Borderlands.
Still crushing through Borderlands. Yeah.
Are you going to play this week, or is it one more?
TBD.
Okay, all right. You'll see how the Borderlands.
Yeah, let's see how the weekend goes.
That's fair. Well, if you want to reach out to us on social media and tell us about any cool games you played, or just say hi, how would you do that, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can Facebook search us CMDR Central. You can YouTube search us CMDR Central, and you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also buy some sweet Scumbags Unite t-shirts over at teespring.com/store/CMDR Central, where you can buy my shirt or just our logo t-shirt and make sure I win this bet against Chris.
I had a question about that this week. Someone asked me if the shirts will still be available after the contest.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yes, they will. And the person said, oh, well, good, because I really want to get Chris a shirt.
Who was this?
But I do want to see him get hit with a pie.
I didn't know who this was.
I have suspicions, but I don't know if they would have been in the shop on Tuesday.
So somebody wants to see you get hit with a pie, but they also want your... So, it's a compliment, but it's also they want to see you get hit with a pie. So.
I bet it's a certain owner of said store because they...
Probably.
Their birthday party, there's always something like this involved, and I think it's finding retribution.
I did tell listener Matt on Tuesday that... if it comes down to it, like 3 days before, and if I'm losing, I will drop the money myself and beat you.
Okay.
Well, if it's that close.
If it's that close.
It is close right now.
Is it?
It's 3-1. Me.
Oof.
And Matt is the 1.
Just wait. Nice. Just wait. Yeah, we're all going to come out of the woodwork.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. We got till the end of the year.
That's right. You can also find us on flipsidegaming.com.
Yeah, head over to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code CMDR in all caps to get 10% off all orders $10 or more, including pre-ordering your Throne of Eldraine product.
Very, very cool. I think we have a couple contests that are still in progress here.
Yeah, for Twitter, we're giving away the 5 rubber wristbands we picked up at Magic Fest Vegas from Core 20. So find that tweet, retweet it, and follow us to get entered. And then for Patreon, if you support us or continue to support us by the end of the month, you'll be entered in to win the Ultimate Guard Mountain Playmat.
All right. Very, very good. So we might as well just jump into talking about Eldraine, because this is maybe going to take us a little while. We do this differently every time, and this time just because, let's just start with commons and work our way up through rarity and talk about cards that we think are worth talking about. And I can start here with an uncommon I think is worth mentioning for decks, and that's a Witch's Cottage. It's one of the common land cycles. It is a swamp, I think, which is the main thing that makes this relevant. Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other swamps, and when Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So it comes into play tapped in your first couple turns, but Mortuary Mire does too, always comes into play tapped, and it's the same thing, like if there's no creature in your graveyard, it doesn't do anything. I mean, this is a better Mortuary Mire, basically, and Mortuary Mire is not a bad card. And not only is it better because it has a good chance to come into play untapped, it also is fetchable because it's a swamp. And it counts for swamps for things that care about swamps, whether it's Urborg or some of the mana doublers. I don't know if I currently have any decks that want this, but I think it's playable.
It is playable.
Would this be something you almost put in Kresh because you can return something that you flung back to the top of your library?
That's one of the places I was thinking about running it. I don't know, but maybe, yeah. Particularly because you can fetch it. So late, turn 8 or something, and someone's board wiped. That would be useful to go get with that fetch land I top deck, because I do have multiple fetches in there. Go get this, put it in a play, bring that creature back on top for next turn that I can drop and fling. So yeah, maybe that might be the spot where I would run it.
Yeah.
The swamp subtype helps a lot. And this is a cycle, but I think of the common cycle, the Witch's Cottage is probably the most interesting. Any comments from you guys? I have a couple more, but I'll see if either of you two have any two you want to talk about.
Not in the common base.
Yeah, same here. The commons they're commons.
I mean, I like all the land cycles that were out.
They're interesting, and they're interesting in standard especially.
Oh, yes, that's for sure.
There's two I will mention really quick. One is 7 Dwarves, which is kind of a gimmick. It's 1 in a red for a dwarf, and it's a 2/2. But 7 Dwarves get +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 Dwarves you control, and a deck can have up to 7 cards named 7 Dwarves. So flavorfully, that's kind of cool. If you're playing the Depala Vehicles dwarf deck, there's not many good dwarfs, and by not many I mean like 5 or 6. You might well be better off throwing 7 of these in your Depala deck. At least they're going to be big.
Yeah.
If you get 2 of them out, they're 3/3s. It's much easier to crew vehicles and stuff with when they're 3/3s, and they become 4/4s, and they can actually attack at some point. Like, I'm not going to run it anywhere else, but I think in that Depala deck where you care about dwarves, and we may not get any more dwarves for decks in who knows how long. That was basically Kaladesh was the first time we had seen them in years. So if you're playing that deck, I would definitely be considering running 7 of the 7 dwarves.
What you got to do is you build a red-blue clone deck, and you run 7 dwarves and every clone, so you can get an army of them.
You're thinking, Max.
Yeah,
I like it. And I've got one more here that I think is actually sneakily kind of okay, and that's Witching Well. It's a 1-mana artifact for a single blue. When a Witching Well enters the battlefield, you scry 2, and then you can spend 3 in a blue to sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. I mean, none of that's outstanding stuff, but like people run Ponder and they run Serum Visions just to dig down and make sure they can hit those land drops. This isn't as good as those, but it's not terrible. Like just seeing what the top 2 cards are and dumping them or rearranging them to know you hit that landfall is useful. There's decks that care about having artifacts. I just told a story about one that did. And then later on, if you don't need it, you can crack it to draw a couple cards. I'm considering it strongly in my Vela deck. I might replace Artificer's Intuition, which draws me 2 at instant speed, but this isn't as good, but it gives me the option to draw 2 for 4, so it's only 1 more to draw, and it can sit there being an artifact, doing things that care about artifacts, and that Scry 2 isn't nothing. It's not an amazing card, but I think you would be surprised looking at your decks that you're like, this might actually work better than some other things. Looking at, there's decks like Akiri Lineslinger and
Bruce Tarl.
Yeah, well, Bruce, those two can run it together, but like Akiri gets paired sometimes with, who's the black?
The Dimir one?
The Dimir one, whose name I've just
Silas
forgotten.
Wren.
There we go. I've seen that deck. There's one in our shop. Like if you're playing that kind of thing, that also cares about artifacts. Some of those kind of things, it does make a difference. So I think Witching Well is one that's actually might show up in decks. So nothing else from you guys. We can jump down to comments.
I'm surprised you didn't want to say anything about the new black card draw spell that's out there.
The one
another 3 mana
that makes a food. I thought about it. I think food is super underwhelming. And again, it does make you a token. So it's 3 mana. It's 2 and a black.
It's an artifact token.
And it makes an artifact token. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, which is something I do like.
And then you'll gain 3 back from the food.
Yeah,
so net life.
I'm just gonna bring a bag of gummy bears and be like, "This is my food token."
Oh, where'd it go? I ate it.
Like if it was a card from Ixalan that made you treasures, I think treasure is way more useful than the food tokens.
Or even clues.
Even clues, right? But I don't think the food is useful enough, even though it makes an artifact. Even in a deck that cares about it, I just don't think it does enough.
I guess I do have one we can talk about. It's just another one of those Lignify type cards and was so tiny.
Oh yeah.
It's an enchantment for a single blue. It has flash and enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets -2/-0, and if it gets -6/-0 instead, as long as its controller has 7 or more cards in their graveyard.
So it probably turns off most damage from most creatures.
Yes.
And it's at instant speed, so it's a combat trick.
Right.
Okay. How about on comments? Anything from you guys for on comments? I've got a couple here.
I gotta say, they printed Righteousness as an uncommon. I could have sworn that was a rare back in the day.
It was a rare back in the day, absolutely.
I do like the cycle of they're legendary knights.
Yes.
Yeah.
All 5 of them. I like all 5 of them.
All 5 are interesting. The one that especially jumped out at me is Sir Conrad the Grim. He's the black one. And I'll quick read him. He's 3 and 2 black. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves your graveyard, Sir Connor the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. And you can also spend 1 and a black. Each player puts a top card of their library into their graveyard. That's like a legit commander at that point, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Particularly because it's also has the leaves the graveyard trigger. So stuff like Gravecrawler that you would sacrifice to your, or just Skull Clamp it or whatever. Everyone takes a damage, goes to your graveyard, recasts it, comes back out. Everyone takes damage again.
It's a good thing that they printed a card that prevents graveyard triggers or death triggers.
Yes, which was just, actually that's not even on my list. That was just spoiled after I made notes.
Yeah, I was flipping through my Twitter looking at that, and I'm like, really?
Yep. But yeah, I think Sir Conrad's a legit deck, and I was considering making him. I still might.
Ooh.
So that's one because my Teysa Karlov deck was kind of built around crappy creatures that I would sacrifice and then bring them back and sacrifice them again to make tokens. But tokens were my win condition in that deck, and if I didn't have Catherine's Crusade or something out, it got difficult sometimes to win. The commander does it. I don't need to make tokens and attack with them. If I'm doing all that nonsensical stuff I was doing in that deck, I can just deal damage and do it. So that's why I might try to kind of rebuild that deck under Sir Conrad. But yeah, I agree, Chris. All the knights are interesting. The green one is probably good enough for my Recce deck too.
Yeah, I suppose with the amount of how you can pump your guys and everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like all of those in some way, shape, or form. Any from you, Max?
I love all that glitters. So that's 1 and a white for Enchant Creature, and it gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control.
I mean, it's basically a reprint of Ethereal Armor. I guess Ethereal Armor gives first strike and costs 1 less.
Yeah. But this counts artifacts too.
So this is useful in an Enchantress deck or in some kind of an artifact deck, or if you're doing some kind of mix of both.
Right, or like a Brea deck would be great for that. Ooh.
Is this going to go in your Tuvasa deck?
Yes, it is.
I mean, very easily in this Tuvasa deck, it's 2 mana and it's going to add +7/+7 or +8/+8, if not more.
Yeah.
That's really efficient. Yeah, I like all that glitters too. I like Kenrith's Transformation. 1 and a green enchantment aura. Enchant Creature. When Kenrith's Transformation enters battlefield, draw a card. That's the important part at cantrips. Enchanted Creature loses all abilities and is a green elk with base power and toughness 3/3. So same CMC as Lignify. Instead of being an 0/4 tree folk, it's a 3/3 elk. But you cantrip, so you're basically trading the ability for it to attack and do damage for drawing a card. And
you're not just going to willy-nilly cast this thing. There's going to be something that's got an ability that you really need to deal with.
So I'm wondering if I replace Lignify. I think the cantrip portion of it is worth it. Because I run Lignify in multiple decks.
I kind of picture it like this. You have no issue with giving someone a 3/3 beast off of Beast Within our Generous Gift. So this is just a little different because it has to be a creature.
Yep.
And you're still kind of locking it down. You're making it a 3/3.
I guess the nice part about Lignify is being a 0/4, that 4 damage lets it soak up a lot of stuff. Because people try to get that. If you hit their commander, they're trying to chump block something to get it killed oftentimes so they can recast it while it's no longer a tree folk. It's easier to kill a 3/3, but not that much easier. I think it's probably worth the trade-off for the cantrip. So I'm debating that, but I don't think I need 3 because Song of the Dryads is just better because it hits other targets. And I don't think I want 3 of the effects in the decks that are running them. I just think 3 is too many of a sorcery speed removal spell that only hits creatures in this case. So I will keep Song, and I think I will probably bump out Lignify for this.
Nice.
Any from you, Chris?
How about our wonderful little Gruul Goblin?
I was going to talk about that one too.
I actually really do like this card. It's called Grumgully the Generous.
Yep.
1 generic and red and green. For legendary creature Goblin Shaman, who's a 3/3. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So I think there would be another way to build goblins if you really wanted to.
Or Shaman. Assuming you're not using a bunch of human shaman, you could build a shaman tribal deck out of that.
I know there are a lot of cards in the set that say non-human.
Yeah,
so I think it's really helping the other tribes out.
Yeah.
So you could jam everything in there, just make sure you have no humans, and it's just like, oh, this guy's going to trigger this guy, and this guy will trigger this guy, and
he's an uncommon, which is always kind of a fun thing for a legend, and the power level seems like he's decent. I think that's a reasonable commander to play.
Yeah,
if
a
you want to
3/3 for
defend it.
3 who, if you play a 1/1 goblin or a 1/1 anything, becomes a 2/2.
And if you're playing a like Jund goblin deck, I've seen Shattergang where there's goblins before. If you're playing one of those decks, it probably goes in the deck. It's worth it for
I
all your
would
goblins
believe
to
it.
come and play with an extra counter on them. So, yeah, I like that one too. I'm going to mention one here, Deafening Silence. It's a enchantment for 1 mana. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn.
Ooh.
I don't know where I want to run it myself, but like there's absolutely decks that want that effect. If you are playing something that's heavy on creatures and not on spells, which is a lot of Naya decks especially.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's in white, so you almost have to splash into another color.
So I'm assuming
Yeah.
Naya or maybe like some kind of like Risa Redeem that tends to be a heavy creature elf deck
Yep.
or token deck or something maybe. But there's decks I feel like this is going to be super annoying. People are going to play this in a deck that I'm like, ugh, it doesn't affect them at all, and I'm just boned now.
Or people are going to play it and it's going to affect them too, but they just want to like, slow
they're not
down the
thinking
game.
it through. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, maybe. But at 1 mana too, it's really easy to get out there and have it.
I definitely think this is a really good CEDH card,
Oh,
especially for
sure.
combo decks. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to stop them, stall
Yeah.
them out.
Yep. Yeah, shuts off Storm.
Sure does.
So so I'll ask you: at 1 mana, is that a sideboard card that somebody would play Modern to deal with Storm?
It's going to depend on the deck, really.
I mean, Storm isn't that
Yeah, and if it
big
depends
of a
on
deal
if
right
Storm
now. But,
ticks up again, which
Okay.
I have a feeling it's gonna.
but it's a backup plan. Then, like if
Yep.
that does happen, if you're playing white, that is a way to deal with Storm. So,
But you got Damping Sphere, which does the same thing.
yeah, that's
well,
true.
not the same thing, but close to it.
And is in colorless. You don't need to be playing
Yep.
white. Yeah. Drown in the Lock is an uncommon. Black and blue. Choose one. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So, I mean, if you're playing something that empties graveyards, if you're playing, I don't know what commander would care about that, but you probably don't want to run it. But for 2 mana, a lot of times that's probably going to be a counter spell. That's just a counter spell for the
Right.
most part. That gives you the option to have it be a Doomblade or something. I guess just a creature destruction spell. It doesn't even care about.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not a bad card, except for the fact that we advocate graveyard
We
hate.
do. Yeah, that's the one thing about it. And it's also one of those cards. Like I'm looking at the colors. Go for the Throat. Almost always just destroys something,
Yeah.
or counter spell just always counters a spell. And I love modular cards when they give you 2 options that always work, but when they give you 2 options that might not work, that's a whole different deal. But I think it's interesting. I think it's playable in some decks. I think people will play it. Myself, I think it's maybe just a little too squirrely for me, but I think it's a cool card. Any more?
Well, speaking of that card, is very similar to the one, as you're saying, that people might not play it, that I was looking at, Epic Downfall, which
Yeah,
is a 2
yeah.
mana sorcery, exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater, and it's in black.
That's so cool.
I mean, 2 mana is huge, but it's a sorcery,
Sorcery speed.
which kind of hurts, but
Yep.
the exile effect is huge.
That will be absolute bomb and limited, though.
Yeah.
Like you
Oh,
want to snap
It's going to be
grab those
constructed.
unlimited.
It's
Yeah.
going to be really good.
So
I like Covetous Urge. It's 4 hybrid Dimir mana symbols for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand and exile it, and then you may cast that card as long as it remains exiled, and you can spend mana as if it were any color to cast it.
Graveyard too is really,
It's
really
huge.
nice. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm curious about cards like this with the new adventure spells. If you exile it, do they still have the opportunity to cast it for its other side?
I would think not because it's exile.
I believe the way.
Or do you have to cast the adventure side first in order to even
Yes.
be able
Yes.
to do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to cast the adventure side first before you can cast the creature portion. Because usually creatures, right? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heraldic Banner. It's a 3 mana rock. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+0, and add 1 mana of the chosen color to your mana pool and you tap it. So it's a better mana lift, but there's a lot of those. But it buffs your creatures +1/+0. I don't think it's amazing, but I think if you're playing like mono red goblins or something where you're going to be running 6 or 8 mana rocks anyway,
Or if you're going to run with all the knights that were printed in this set, if you're going to run like a Boros Knights or something.
Yeah.
Something, because you're looking for any type of value that's going to pump your creatures
Yeah.
to win the game in the aggro route.
like I'm thinking like, okay, I run Commander Sphere in my Talrand deck, and it's nice to be able to sacrifice it to draw a card. But I'm like, man, making all those drakes, if I 3/2s is a big deal. Like, there's a lot of times that's the difference between killing somebody and not killing somebody.
Especially in that deck where pretty much that entire deck is cantrips.
Yeah, like I don't need to draw that badly off Commander Sphere. I mean, it's still useful at times, but like I can definitely get away without having it, and being able to turn that 12 power of drakes into 16 power can make a big difference sometimes. And it can make a big difference for blocking too. So I think that card is actually sneakily kind of cool, and I'm going to run it in at least that deck. All right, let's take a look at the rares. Max, what do you like here?
I want to talk about Araya, First of the Loch Wayne. I think
okay.
So it's triple black for a legendary creature, Elf Noble. When it or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Then you can sack another tap and sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. I think this is a really fun build-around commander.
Yeah.
You can do tokens, you can do whatever. I might try to do it in Regnan Krav, but most of my tokens are white, which isn't going to help.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Sir, the Grim, Sir Counter the Grim, I think is what I'm going to build, but I was considering her for the same purpose. She'll also do kind of the same thing, and that's a super sweet card, too.
Yeah.
So I like her. In the same cycle, we have Thorbrand, Thane of Red Fell for 1 and triple red. And he's a dwarf, so we mentioned not having a lot of dwarves. There's a dwarf for you.
He's actually a cool-looking dwarf, too.
Yeah, he is. If a red source you control will deal damage to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2. So I read that at first. I'm like, well, that's
Plus
okay,
for 15.
Right. or like, okay, so your creatures deal a little bit more or whatever. Then I'm like, I stop and think about it. I'm like, man, that makes stuff like Pyrohemia gets really, really good. And I'm like, there's a lot of those little red effects that just plink
Lightning
somebody.
Bolt for 5.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That stuff gets a lot better. Or like even any kind of token deck. Like if you're playing, what's that Matt runs, the red Valduke.
Valduke, yep.
That's swinging with, 3 or 4 of those tokens made off Valduke. Like those swinging in for 5, that's huge. So the Planeswalker, most red Planeswalkers deal some kind of direct damage. Like this is buffing that damage too. I think he's a legit commander. You could definitely build a deck around him just using a bunch of those damage effects.
He is going in my Mogus deck.
Is he? Oh, jeez. Yeah, that makes sense.
Sack a creature and take 4.
Yeah. Mana Barbs makes each land you tap do 3.
This is going to be awesome.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of those
I'm going to cry.
red pain effects, and adding 2 to that really, really hurts.
Well, I got to tweak that Mokus deck up because apparently it's not up to snuff for the rest of you guys or something.
I don't know what you're talking about.
How about you, Chris? What do you got for rares here?
I got Murderous Rider, who is a zombie knight for 1 generic and double black. Is a 2/3 creature, but it also has the wonderful adventure side.
Yeah.
Which is called Swift End. 1 colorless and double black. Destroy target creature, planeswalker. You lose 2 life. Okay?
Now, so the difference between Hero's Downfall and that is you lose 2 life. And Commander, for the most part, the 2 life is irrelevant. So it's basically a Hero's Downfall that also makes a creature.
Goes into exile, and then you can cast it for its creature side, which is a 2/3 with lifelink. And whenever a Murderous Rider dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library.
So it can recur itself somewhat, but you're probably going to get the life back that you spent to cast a Hero's Downfall anyway because it has lifelink.
Yeah, I think it just, for me, I'm going to try and replace Vampire Nighthawk with this because I play Vampire Nighthawk in my Mogus deck. So the life gain kind of matters sometimes.
Sure.
How everyone hates on me. So it gives me an option of doing a removal spell or a creature.
Nice.
Or doing both if need be.
That makes sense. Fervent Champion I kind of like here. 1 red is the main reason I like it for a human knight, and the knight part is relevant because there's a lot of knight stuff here. It has first strike and it has haste. It's only a 1/1, but whenever it attacks, another target attacking knight you control gets +1/+0, but that really isn't the interesting part here. The interesting part is equip abilities you activate that target Fervent Champion cost 3 less.
Oh, that's cute.
So I went through, and you know what? I didn't write the stats down, but I went through and looked it up. Of the top 100 equipment on EDH Rec, like 91 of them attach for free.
Ooh.
And I could be wrong. It might have been, it might have been 89. It might have been whatever. But
still,
like the vast majority of them, the exceptions were like Argentum armor, and there was a couple that didn't. But like all the swords do. all the protection, like Swiftfoot boots and stuff do. Like, almost any equipment you're probably running in a deck that cares about equipment attaches to him for free. That's a great backup plan if you're playing, like, Jorkadeen, or you're playing, trying to think what is a common equipment commander. A lot of times Tajik is kind of an equipment-based thing. If you're playing red and you care about equipment, I mean, this is a nice way to work around if Valduk dies. And you're like, I can't cast him for the third time, but I can throw these things in this guy for 0 mana and swing in for 14 damage. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to run it in any of my decks, but if I was playing an equipment deck that had access to red, I would for sure run him. Max, what do you got?
I love Escape to the Wilds. It's a sorcery for 3 red and a green, and it says exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play cards exiled this way until the end of your next turn. You may play an additional land this turn.
So it kind of does, was it Urban Burgeoning?
Urban Evolution?
Or no, Urban Evolution, where you draw 3?
Draw 3, you can play 2 lands this turn.
But you're in red, so you're not going to get the same effect you do in Simic. But
it's a light up the stage that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Has a land, you can get to ramp the land, which is nice.
I mean, it's nice because if you cast this before making your land drop and you hit 2 lands of the 5 cards, there's your land drops for this turn.
And a lot of times particularly if you're playing red-green, if you're casting that Harmonize, you're like, well, I hope I hit 1 land and 2 useful cards to make your land drop or whatever. That this is going to do the same thing because you're going to get to play that land for nothing. Then it's going to cast one of those spells. Yeah, I like it too. Chris, any more cards from you?
I'm reading one right now that I didn't read fully last time. So Lochmere Serpent. I don't know if this is going to be an EDH card or not. The abilities seem really good, but I'm loving this card for Standard now that I've reread it.
What is it? Which one is it?
It is a 6 mana, so 4 generic, blue and black, for a 7/7 Serpent with Flash. So for 1 blue, sacrifice an island. Lochmere Serpent can't be blocked this turn. 1 black, sacrifice a swamp. You gain 1 life and you draw a card. 1 blue, 1 black. Exile 5 target cards from an opponent's graveyard. Return Lochmere Serpent from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery.
That seems really good for Standard.
Some kind of a control finisher, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about the Dimir aspect of Commander because I've never played those 2 colors together, but it seems like it might be good. Maybe.
It'd be cool if it said Legendary on it.
Oh, if it said Legendary, I'd be all over this card.
That would be a pretty sweet legend. I agree.
Never pay the Commander tax again.
Well, how about the better Terramorphic Expanse we got? Fabled Passage. It's a land that just says sacrifice Fabled Passage and search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. Then, if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land.
So good.
I mean, I think it goes in every deck that's multiple colors, and maybe there's not much downside to running it in your monocolor deck either.
It'd go great in that Hogak deck we covered last week.
Sure, yeah.
I'm so glad I haven't seen a Hogak deck in the shop. I saw enough of it in Modern. I hate that card.
So you haven't played against Ben lately?
No, I helped him tweak it a little bit, but that's... As soon as he sits down across from me and be like, no.
I mean, if you've got Delve stuff, if you have a deck that's already running like Excavator or Crucible, it's just one more way to make sure you hit your land drops too.
I mean, I think I said this in our Slack. It's the Kmart version of Prismatic Vista.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, but it's really, really solid.
It's a very solid card, yeah.
And it's a rare, so it won't be nothing, but it also won't be Prismatic Vista expensive either, because that's like closing in on 30, I think now. This won't be nothing, but this will be affordable, I would guess.
Yeah.
It'll be sub-shock land price. I think it'll be it'll be single digits, I would guess.
I saw a lot of pros talking about it on Twitter because the mana fixing in Standard is non-existent, like your fetching abilities.
So this might be their...
And this could be a way to mana fix.
Sure.
And at rare... That's the biggest issue that I have with it, is that it's at rare. So it's going to feel real bad when you're drafting and you crack this and you're like, well, this is good for, I guess, but why?
I want to money keep it, but it's a bad card to have in a draft. Yeah, no, that makes sense. We have a cycle of rare lands, too, and I think they're all different castles.
Yes.
The one I'm going to mention, and I already kind of touched on this same thing with Goblins earlier, but Castle Embereth, I think, is maybe the one that I think will see the most play. Just because there tends to be a lot of red decks that care about creatures attacking, whether it's a Goblin deck or the Valduke kind of deck we talked about, or even like something like a Prosh, where like you have those tokens and you can sacrifice them at any point in time. What's nice about this is it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain, so pretty often it's going to come into play untapped. You can tap it for a red, or you can spend 3, which is 2 red and a colorless, to tap it for creatures you control, get +1/+0 till end of turn. Again, it's not like
you think this one's going to be played the most, though?
I think it maybe not the most. I think so though. I feel like if I was playing,
I'm on the green one.
If
I'm on the blue one.
If I'm playing, well, the blue one's good too. If I'm playing goblins, I think I run this.
Yes.
In a goblin deck for sure, or a Velduck deck, I think I run it for sure. The blue one doesn't have much downside either, and that's a really, really nice mana sink on a land.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how often I'll use it, but I feel like it's the one. Like, whereas I think I shouldn't say the cast will be the one, the red one will be the one that gets played the most. I think it'll get used the most because there's a lot of situations where you want to tap that. I think the blue one, like, hopefully you're not ending a lot of turns with 5 mana free. Hopefully you're being more efficient than that, but it's nice to have the option to dump it into a scry. So, I mean, the black one's useful too.
I like the green one. I like the green one.
The green one is pretty cool.
You net 1 mana, but it's only for creature spells.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a Temple of the False God that doesn't screw you early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to think of it that way. The only problem with the green one is green has so much access to mana and ramp and stuff that doesn't need that badly.
Have more.
Why not? Sure. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And the black one has some real good use in things like Grevin, where he gets bigger when you take damage for the turn. Being able to take that damage off that black land and then not have it use up a card slot is pretty useful in that deck too. So I think they're all playable in some way or form, but I wanted to mention Embereth just because maybe I have goblins in the brain or something for whatever reason, but that jumped out at me. Any more of these from you guys?
I am really liking Folio of the Fancies. This is a rare artifact for 1 and a blue. And it says, players have no maximum hand size. And then it has 2 activated abilities, so you can pay XX and tap it, and each player draws X cards. And you can also do 2 generic mana and a blue and tap it, and each opponent puts the number of cards equal to the number of cards in their hand from the top of their library into their graveyard.
That seems good if you're doing mill stuff.
Well, I think I mentioned this on a previous show. I'm trying to find a win con for Brago.
Okay.
Because last week I was able to make infinite mana on like turn 7, but I had nothing to use it on.
Sure.
And I think, I went straight to like Stroke of Genius.
Right.
But this would be something because then I can blink it and keep doing it through infinite Brago triggers.
Sure.
So at one point, I can make everybody draw X amount of cards.
Well, in Stroke of Genius hits 1 person.
Right.
You could use this for everybody.
Yeah. So like I plan on, counting the number of cards in my library, making sure I don't make everybody draw that many,
right,
and then start milling people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a couple of blue ones here I wanted to mention. Emry, Lurker of the Lock, is the Merfolk Wizard legend. 1/2 for 3 mana. This spell costs 1 less for each artifact you control. And when Emry of the Lock enters battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. So, absent like a Leyline of the Void or something, this is probably going to almost always just cost a mana because people will build around what it does.
Yep.
It also has a tap ability. Tap and choose target artifact in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn.
That's really good.
So I've already seen a lot of like broken like modern/legacy things people are trying to do with this. But
Moxen.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even like garbage, like, hey, I'll drop a turn 1 Torment's Crypt or something. And,
right.
There's a lot of stuff you can get out with this that makes it immediately cost 1 mana to tap. I think I saw some pretty quick infinite combos people were posting in Modern that were Modern legal as well, like turn 3 infinites. But in Commander, it's still, I think, a strong commander.
Yeah.
And definitely a strong inclusion if you're wanting like a Muzio kind of deck or Arkham Dagson or something. I mean, I would probably be considering it in my Vela deck if I wasn't limiting myself to artifact creatures. It's definitely a good card. I also like Mirror Maid. It's an enchantment for 1 and 2 blue.
Yeah.
You may have Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. So it doesn't target for 1, which is kind of useful. But basically 3 mana to copy the best artifact or enchantment in play. Very rarely is that ever going to be bad.
Right.
But people play Worn Power Stone for 3 mana that comes into play. That's a 3 mana Soul Ring that comes into play tapped. Like if you copy a Soul Ring for 3 mana and this one doesn't come into play tap, that's still a great play. Let alone you copy someone else's Wormcoil Engine for 3 mana, or get a second copy at Doubling Season, or I mean, that's really efficient. Copy Artifact is a great spell.
Yep.
Copy Enchantment's a pretty solid spell at 2 mana for both of those. This lets you do either of them for 1 additional mana. That's really solid.
Yeah, this is definitely going to find a slot in my Tuvasa deck because I want to I want to live the dream of copying Nylea's Colossus and then getting the double trigger.
Oh, that's gross. Yeah, that's
fair magic, everybody.
That's pretty disgusting.
Fair magic.
I'm gonna double it and then double it again and play this and then double it. Oh man, yeah. No, that's cool. I also kind of like Stolen by the Fae. That's an X blue for a sorcery. Return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. You may create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. I mean, so it can get kind of pricey. Like you want to bounce a 5-drop, it's going to cost you 7 mana. But you're making 5 fairy tokens. That's not nothing.
Right.
I think it's probably going to be best in your, whether you build a Lela or Una or whatever your fairy tribal deck is. It's probably better there because you have additional synergies with those fairies. But I've thought about it for Talrand. There's enough times it's worth bouncing a flyer out of my way, and if I make 4 or 5 fairies in the process that might get buffed by gravitational shift or favorable winds or something. I don't know for sure I'm going to try it there, but like I was considering it, I think it's a playable card.
Yeah.
And if you're playing some kind of stacks configuration, people run Aura Mutation just to get the tokens off Aura Mutation. Sometimes I don't even care about the aura they're blowing up, they just want the tokens, or Artifact Mutation in stacks kind of builds just to be able to sacrifice the bodies. This is kind of one more of those kind of effects where anything you bounce as value, you mostly just care about making the things. Any more from you guys?
I feel like we should talk about Return of the Wild Speaker.
Sure.
So this is an instant for 4 and a green. Choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn.
It's instant speed too.
Instant speed, Soul's Majesty / Overrun.
That's really, really good. I guess it's not a true overrun because there's no trample attached to it. But in a lot of green decks, you have so many, or like you're just playing Nylea, it's in so many decks anyway. Right. Or so many of the creatures just have trample anyway.
Yeah. Like,
I think it's going to go in Recce probably, but I don't know for certain. But I'm going to run it in, I'm definitely going to put it in my Kresh deck. My Kresh deck has 1 human in it, and it's Kresh.
Right.
So like I'll draw, everything else draws me a good pile of cards in that deck. I went and checked my Recce deck. There's 5 humans in the deck, counting Recce, but with the exception of 2 of them, so the other 3, Recce and Avaya Pashiri and...
Rishkar?
No, Rishkar is an elf. Dasan of the Falling Leaf.
Oh, gotcha.
Like they're all 1/1s or 1/2s. I'm not going to cast...
To make them 4/4s.
This into those anyway, or not going to cast the card draw if they're my only creatures out.
Right.
So I guess if a Surrak is out, normally I would draw cards off him with a Soul's Majesty or something. I guess this won't draw me cards, but off Surrak. But it's also instant. I think the instant speed alone maybe offsets makes it worthwhile for the human component, and the +3/+3 on top of that.
Ooh.
And apparently Grukka's decursed.
Yes, the curse is broken.
Yeah, that's a cool card.
Yeah, this is just getting replaced. It's replacing Soul's Majesty and Dromoka.
Okay,
because I don't have any humans in that deck.
Sure.
They're all either angels or dragons.
So the option to do it at instant speed is really, really nice. Yes. And you have the additional overrun if you want to. Yeah, that makes sense there. I also liked, and I was wondering about this for you, Max, Dance of the Manse. It's
I don't dance.
It is a white-blue X for a sorcery. Return up to X target artifacts and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with converted mana cost X or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are also 4/4 creatures. The creature part's kind of annoying, but like there's a lot of times I look at my graveyard in my Sphinx deck and I'm like, oh, there's a True Conviction and a Riftic Study and a 3 artifacts that got blown up with a Vandal Blast in there. I can just cast this for 5 and bring back all that stuff. Or 6, I guess, for True Conviction. But
yeah. So, obviously, this would go in my Brago deck if I were to run it.
Okay.
Most of my enchantments in that deck are able to be brought back with Sun Titan.
Okay.
For 1 more mana, I can Sun Titan with the ETB trigger, get something back. If I connect with Brago that turn and blink it, there's another one. Or the next turn if I attack. Like I have ways to bring them all back with Sun Titan, I think more consistently than this card.
Sure.
And all my artifacts are all 3 or less.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's 5 mana to bring them back. A Grim Monolith? Or a...
Yeah.
So I feel like in my Brago deck is not the spot for this card, but I feel like maybe like Bruna decks or any sort of other blue-white cares about these type of card types. Even maybe Brea.
I think your Tuvasa deck is mostly auras, so that wouldn't quite work there. But like, there's enough. Whether if you're playing like maybe Estrid or something that has a bunch of non-aura enchantments in it.
There you go.
That would probably work really well in there too.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool card.
It is a cool card.
Any more rares?
Let me go to the second page on Scryfall.
Because there's a lot. I mean, this is a pretty deep set, I think.
Chris, you got more?
I want you guys' personal opinion on this card because I've been watching Twitter hard, and there's this. It's split down the middle.
Is it a rare?
Yes.
What is it?
Happily Ever After.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so no. So I was talking garbage about it.
Yep.
But I think there's two ways to look at it. If this was the first we had heard of this card and there was nothing said about it in the past, I just kind of shrug. I'm like, well, it's not an all-win card, and I'm not going to run it. But like, some people love all-win stuff, and if you're into that, cool. It's a one more way to do that. At some point, maybe someone's going to build a 5-color alt-win condition deck because you probably want to get all of them in your deck, and this is one more you can jam in there because it does kind of require 5 colors.
There's one card that will allow you to get around it.
The Plain White Celebration?
Plain White Celebration.
Yep. Which you might win in you might run an alt-win condition deck anyway. So, yeah.
I would.
But the problem is Mark Rosewater made an announcement like a month ago saying we're going to do this new thing in Commander or in Throne that's going to help out White and Commander, and this doesn't do that
does
at
not.
all. Number one, it has to be 5 colors, so you're not helping White out. And White already has alt-win condition, so it isn't anything new, and I'm not sure how it helps. I'm not sure how Howling Mine everybody to draw a card helps either. It's a perfectly fine card for an alt-win condition card, and that's okay. It's just he didn't seem to understand how Commander works, I think, is what it is sometimes. Which he's admitted, he doesn't pay attention to Commander, and I think he doesn't entirely understand what's going on in the format. I think he spoke too soon, and then last week he kind of walked it back. He's like, well, it isn't that big of a deal, don't get your hype. So I think somebody might have took him aside and said, that's not a good Commander card. or it's like, fine, Commander, but it's not going to help White decks in Commander. No. You probably shouldn't have said that. So he kind of walked it back last week.
Gavin was on vacation when he said that.
Right. All right. Is that it for rares?
That's all I have for rares.
Probably can just skip the mythics. There's not much here.
The what? Huh?
Mythics, Max. What do you got for us?
Well, we're going to start with Kenneth, the Returned King.
Okay.
So he is the box topper. Not box topper, but buy a box promo.
Yes.
When you go buy your box of Throne of Eldraine from your local game store. He is a legendary creature, human noble, for 4 generic mana and a white. And he has 5 activated abilities. So you can spend a single red to give all creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. You can pay 1 in a green for put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. 2 in a white, target player gains 5 life. 3 in a blue, target player draws a card. And 4 in a black, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. This is another one of those 5-colored legendaries that Wizards seems to be printing in standard with every set.
That also aren't quite 5 colors because they have
activated abilities.
Yeah, which is I don't love. I thought it was neat the first time we saw it with like General Tazri. At this point, I'm like, okay, I get it. But it kind of makes it, I feel like, a little bit too easy to play a 5-color deck. Like, I think 5-color, you have access to every card. Maybe the price you pay for that is your commander's a pain in the butt to cast sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this works when they keep doing this, whether it's with Najila or here
Golos.
I feel like it kind of takes away the disadvantage that maybe 5-color decks should have. So I am getting a little bit tired of it, but it's an interesting enough card.
It's a cool card. I'm going to start working on Morphon Humans, and this is going right into that deck. To be able to give all my humans haste.
There you go.
It's one of the few cards in this set that cares about humans.
Yeah, right. Because the rest of them don't care that it's not
non-human. Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
There's a couple of them. One of them's for standard base. The one that I'm looking at and I'm liking this because I have this like vision in my mind for this card is a Harmonious Archon, however you pronounce it.
I think it's Archon or Archon, I think.
Archon. So for 4 generic and double white, you have a creature, Archon, flying. Non-Archon creatures have base power and toughness 3/3. And when it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens, and it is a 4/5.
First of all, that's a lot of power for that mana that's coming into play.
Yep. So 6 mana, you're getting 10 power worth of creatures.
One of which has flying.
Yep.
Which is way useful in a standard kind of environment.
And it's not counting what you already have on the battlefield. That's going to just flip it.
It shuts stuff off for other opponents they could be counting on for some kind of interaction. In Commander, I'm really curious. I feel like they're...
Slivers.
lose all your abilities. But like in a token deck, that's a kind of a nice...
They don't lose their abilities. They just get base power and toughness 3/3. Then they get all their abilities on top of it.
That's a good point. If you're in a token deck, especially, like it probably just buffs your stuff and maybe shuts everyone else, knocks everyone's stuff down. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's still a little bit too unpredictable, maybe.
Oh, it's going to be so
much
fun.
It's a neat card.
I mean, there are 13 total Archons in the game, including this card. So there you go. There's
tribal.
most of your creature base. Throw in some Changelings and you're good. And they're in Bant. Oh, no, 4 color, because there is Ashen Rider. So everything but red.
Interesting. There you go. But
I think it's just
Archon deck.
I think it's just a political card.
Yeah.
Because you can sit there and you look over at the token player who's got like 5 1/1s, and you look over at the player who's tapped out but's going to kill everyone next turn. You're just like, guess what? I'm going to turn all your guys into 3/3s.
I mean, most of the Archons are all sort of political. I mean, you have the Archon of Absolution from this set, which is essentially ghostly. You have to pay 1 for them to attack you. So there's a Ghostly Prison one, Blazing Archon. All these Archons have somewhat of a political aspect to them, especially like the one from Battle Bond, Archon of Valor's Reach. So
they kind of remind me of a White's version of a Sphinx a little bit. They're flying, they always have big bodies, and they always do some weird esoteric ability that affects the board state.
Yeah.
So, Archons are kind of cool. So we have a cycle of 5 different mythic artifacts.
They are all good.
The range and power from pretty good to what the hell. So, So where should we start here? Anyone you want to talk about it first?
Should we just go in Wilburg order and cover all of them?
Sure. We're going to do the white one for us here, Max?
Yeah, so the white one is called the Circle of Loyalty. It costs 4 and double white for a legendary artifact. It says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each knight you control. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. And you can pay 3 and a white and tap it to create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. That's a lot of words.
It is. So I like this. The problem here is most of the rest of them are pretty open-ended in what decks you can put them in. This, you really kind of want to be playing knights. Although 6 mana isn't terrible, even if you get no reduction on it. 6 isn't terrible for that effect. Creatures you control get +1/+1. I mean, it does buff your guy as soon as it hits the field. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 knight, and then you can make a knight off it. And you can use it immediately. It's not terrible. But I was kind of like wondering if I might want to play it in my Jeru deck. I recast Jeru a lot. All those Planeswalkers are legendary. I have a few other legendary things in there. I'm like, well, get a free knight token, and it is kind of a token-based deck. That's usually how I win.
Right.
But it's going to be 6 every single time in that deck to cast this. And I'm like, I could just cast a Parhelion for 8 and make 2 angels every time.
Do it.
Crew it with Jeru. So, but if I was playing knights, if I'm playing like Mardu Knights or Boros Knights, I'm running this for sure. I think.
Yeah.
And if your commander, even if your commander is a knight, it's like then it costs 4. That makes a pretty big difference too. Even if you're not running a ton of knights, but your commander's 1, and you're going to be casting a bunch of legendary stuff, then that's maybe enough too.
Yeah.
True.
Chris, you going to read the magic mirror to us?
Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's going to win the t-shirt contest?
Me.
So for 6 generic and triple blue, we have legendary artifact. It reads, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. You have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a knowledge counter on the magic mirror. Then draw a card for each knowledge counter on the magic mirror. So let's just draw all the cards.
So, like, there's a lot of decks. My Sphinx deck, my Talron deck, probably Max's Brago deck. That's going to be 3 mana to cast pretty frequently and pretty early. Or okay, so say there's only 3 instant sorceries in your graveyard, so it costs 6 mana. That's still not terrible.
Yeah.
No maximum hand size. The problem here, though, with this one is it doesn't do anything until your next upkeep. So you cast it, spend however much mana you spent, and you hope that next turn it rolls around and you can draw your card.
And proliferate it repeatedly. So you draw like 7 cards.
There's a lot of upside here.
Yes, there is.
In some decks. There is currently a blue enchantment, Mind Unbound, for 6 mana, 4 blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a lore counter on Mind Unbound, and then draw a card for each lore counter on Mind Unbound. So I guess it comes down to, are you going to frequently be able to cast it for less mana than Mind Unbound? And would you run Mind Unbound in the first place?
No.
I did once upon a time, 4 years ago when the format was a little bit slower and I could get it to stick, and it's a cool card. But we've gotten to the point right now where I don't want to spend 6 mana on something that doesn't do anything until next turn.
I think it's a fairly decent card to draw out any removal if you have something better that you want to play, like an Omniscience or something. Because you can cast this for 3 blue, put in the field, wait the turn. If no one blows it up, then you're just like, okay, jam the Omniscience next turn?
Yeah.
What do you guys got now?
It's really tempting. I'm tempted to give it a try, but I think I'm going to get burned too often. Okay, so we'll jump over to me and take a look at the black one. The black artifact is the Cauldron of Eternity. 10 black, so 12 total, legendary artifact. This spell costs 2 less for each creature card in your graveyard. So if you're playing black, this is probably pretty often going to just be black. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. 2 black and tap, pay 2 life. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So you can't put creatures in your graveyard after this is out, but there should presumably be
something there.
Several of them in there. You're not going to be casting this for 12.
It's not true. What about that awesome black knight that we were talking about where you can mill the top card of your library and you get the trigger where you deal damage whenever a creature goes in the graveyard, and then you play this and bring them back. And
that's true, because whenever your creature you control dies, like if you mill stuff, there's ways to put them into your
surveil.
Like for the most part, this is going to be
play Alesha and play all those awesome discard hand draw cards. Do
you have any place you want to run this?
No,
I think it's a neat card, but I think that's a lot of things for me to keep track of. And black has so much graveyard recursion as it is. I don't know if I want to mess.
I think
with
Whip of Erebos is better.
For the most. Plus, Whip has the life link thing to know, which is not nothing.
Granted,
either.
they do get exiled, but and it costs 1 more mana. I think it's 1 more mana to activate.
Yeah,
there's decks I've put Whip in where I don't even care about the creature portion. I just want the lifelink portion.
And sometimes you get the advantage of having to bring back a creature if you have nothing else going on.
Oh, well, I just gained 20 life off it, but I might as well bring something back. And bring that Secure Tribe Elder back just to sacrifice it. Why not? There's no downside, so I'll just do that and sink some mana. Max, go to you for Ember Cleave.
Ember Cleave is 4 red for legendary artifact equipment. It has Flash, and this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. When Ember Cleave enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample. It also has just equip for 3, for later use.
That's a pretty good combat trick, I think. This isn't flashy. Like some of these, you're like, wow, that's a huge effect. This isn't. I don't think that flashy of an effect. But man, again, if I'm playing equipment that's red, being able to when that creature's coming out, someone's like, oh, I can take the 8. Like now you're taking 16, and it only cost me 2 to cast because I was attacking with my commander and these 3 goblins, or if Valduke I'm attacking with who brought in 3 elementals with him when he was swinging at you because the artifact's already on him. Like Valduke's the place. Like Matt Morgan better be jamming this into his Valduke deck for sure, because it's just going to come into play for free. Give it double strike and trample. That's fantastic. It's a little narrow. I think you don't run outside of that, but
no, it has to be definitely in a themed deck that's going to work with it.
Yeah, or maybe even if you are playing some kind of a swarm deck and you've got a big commander, like maybe my Lathwis deck when I was playing it, would I've considered dropping double strike on Lathwis maybe. a lot of times I had enough dragon tokens I was making, I was swinging with, or the small dragons I was swinging with, just to have them out. So I might run it there. Chris, the last one.
No.
You don't want to read this one?
This one's broken.
This one's my favorite
This
one.
one's broken.
Yeah. This one is.
No, I'm not gonna say it's broken, but this one is probably the best out of the 5.
This is the
So the previous 4 we've been like, well, this would be okay in this deck. This would be okay in this. Yeah, the Great Henge is just great.
It's way too good.
It's just great.
So we have the Great Henge, 7 colorless and double green for, of course, you guessed it, a legendary artifact. So now this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So already that seems pretty good in a green deck, because most of the time your creatures are 5/5s or something. So we'll say at 5/5, so it's 4 mana.
Yep.
We'll just leave it at that. Tap to add double green and gain 2 life. Sure, yeah, let's just have a double mana rock that gains you life too. That's awesome.
Yay.
But wait, there's more.
What?
Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And draw a card.
So Max just casts this for free for 3 mana in your Dromoka deck.
Yep.
And then it immediately taps for 2.
Yep.
So basically this costs you 1 mana. You net lose 1 mana for this.
And gain 2 life.
And gain 2 life, right.
And then cast, a Birds of Paradise and put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card.
Oh.
Here's my draw engine in Dromoka.
And Dromoka doesn't have that many creatures even. Like
18.
It's not even a crazy amount and it's still going to be super strong on that deck.
Yeah,
the deck isn't even specifically that good for this card and it's still great.
I am going to try replacing Frontier Siege with this.
Yeah, I would. That seems like a good swap too.
I got into a heated debate with someone. God, this must have been about 3 weeks ago. We were discussing the best color Magic. And they were dead set it was blue.
No.
And I said green is
green.
the best color in Magic.
It is green.
And I had one of my teammates, Nate, who agreed with me on
Commander at least. That's
it.
great.
In general. We both agree in general.
No, it could be.
Because green has everything that every other color has.
Yeah, it's definitely feels that way.
Yes.
Yeah,
it has the card draw. It has big beater creatures, which no other thing can really deal with. It has removal, which isn't great, but it still has it. I mean, it's way too good.
It has ramp, which most colors don't.
Yes.
And Ancient Stirrings.
And one thing we should note here.
And the new Ancient Stirrings.
Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, not cast.
Yeah, just has to enter.
Enters the battlefield. So if you recur from your graveyard to animate dead, if you do a Genesis Wave for 19 in your Recce deck and put 12 creatures in play, you just draw 12 cards and maybe deck yourself, but that'll be fun too.
And then draw another 12
Right.
cards because Recce's out?
Right, yeah. I mean, Recce it only works on a cast, so I wouldn't draw
is it only on cast?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, why not? That's what that deck needed more card draw.
Yo.
And it draws me a card when I cast it because it's legendary.
I can't wait to
The
see
first
that
thing I'm
happen.
going to ask Dana when he casts the spell, I'm like, did you do the math? Are you going to deck yourself?
If I do, that'll be fine too. I don't mind losing by doing something that stupid. I'm okay with that.
Awesome.
But even in my Glissa deck, okay, number one, there's a lot of decent sized creatures in that deck. There's a Grave Titan, there's a Wormcoil Engine, there's Tetsamok, there's a Harvester of Souls. But so I'll say I have Glissa out and I cast it. So Glissa
it's
reduces
5 mana.
So it's 5 mana. That's okay. I don't mind casting this for 5 mana. I'll feel perfect. Well, I guess it'll be 6. It'll reduce it by 3 because she's a 3/3. So it takes it down to 4 and 2. So 6
Oh,
mana.
yeah, 6 mana. My bad.
I'm still okay casting this for 6 mana in that deck. And making the next spell I cast come into play with a counter on it and draw me a card. And it's a mana rock. And it can be recurred when something dies, when Glissa's out. So I can
'cause it's an
recast it when you blow it
artifact.
up.
Ooh.
So that deck it also isn't that great in, and I'm probably still going to run it. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't an artifact, I put it in my Sigarda deck for sure. I'll be very tempted to put this in most of my green decks. And I would assume that's going to be the case for a bunch of people. I wonder how expensive this is going to be just from Commander players.
Well,
I hope I pull a foil in my box.
and then just trade it away.
I'm going to cut it in half in front of everybody.
I have two. There's 2 mythics, 2 green mythics I want in 2 different decks. I want this at least in foil. I want this in foil in my Recce deck and in my Glissa deck, and I want Questing Beast in foil in both those decks.
Questing Beast so good.
And I'm like,
Questing Beast is going to be expensive.
They're both going to be expensive in foil. They're going to be expensive regularly. They're going to be really expensive in foil. So I'm going to have to start saving some pennies here. But yes, this is definitely going to hit my pocketbook pretty hard. Any more mythics here? We've touched on that awesome cycle. Well, Questing Beast. We can just talk about Questing Beast quick.
Might as well.
So it's 2 and green, legendary creature beast. So it could be a commander too if you wanted to. It has a vigilance and death touch and haste, which is pretty unusual in a green creature. Questing Beast can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. All right. I mean,
Sure.
that's fine. It was going to kill him anyway, but you can't jump block it. I guess that's sometimes a thing. Combat damage that will be dealt to creatures you control can be prevented. Oh, so it's a Dolmen Gate.
Yep.
All right, that seems pretty good. Wait, there's still more text in this stupid card? Yes, there is. Whenever Questing Beast deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls.
Well, that's how they're going to deal with all these planeswalkers
I
from War of the
guess
Spark.
is this thing that can't be blocked and has 14 keyword abilities. And yeah, and so not only does it hit your creature, not only does it hit planeswalkers when it gets through, your creatures don't die in combat because it's really easy for you to just say, I'm swinging everything at that planeswalker over there. And you can't, if you block my stuff, you can't block Questing Beast unless with your small creatures. And
Yeah.
my stuff won't take damage if you do.
If you block with something big, then I just kill it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good card. And it's a 4/4 for 4 mana. That still feels good too.
This is going to be heavily played in Standard. I have this
Yeah.
horrible feeling.
Yeah.
It's the new Death Mist Raptor.
Oh, and it goes with that Rhino from the other set that was a 5/4 for 4 mana that you can give haste for 1 green. Or hexproof or indestructible or whatever else.
Any more mythics? There's a couple planeswalkers here that are interesting.
We have Garrick, the return.
The Cursed Huntsman. He's 4 black green. Legendary Planeswalker Garruk for 5 mana. I don't know if his abilities are that amazing, but I do kind of like the synergy there. He has a 0 where you can create 2/2 black and green wolf creature tokens that have, when this creature dies, put a loyalty counter on each Garruk you control. And he's a -3 and a -6. So
I like it.
you have no
I like it.
you can't hit his -6, which is you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +3/+3 and trample, so you have a permanent overrun. But you can't get that unless you either proliferate something or doubling season something, or get those creatures that you kill off with his 0. That's cool. I like that interaction a lot. And his -3 is also destroy target creature and draw a card. He's pretty good.
Very good.
And I think there's some fun synergy there with that +2 or that 0 ability.
That is really good.
Yeah.
I think he's really good, especially in EDH, because what do you run in black-green decks? You run sack outlets. So you 0, sack it to Ashnod's Altar, make some mana, pump him up to 6,
Next
sack
turn.
the next one, pump him to 7,
Yep.
or even as a combat trick just to make sure
Declare
he
blocks.
lives.
Yeah, declare blocks and then, sack.
Sack them both, sack outlet. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Last we have the Simic Planeswalker, Oko, Thief of Crowns. He comes into play with 4 loyalty. He has a +2 to create a food token, which I think is not that exciting, but
in Standard it's going to be really good.
But delicious.
Well, it all deals with the synergies of certain cards rely on food tokens to do other weird shenanigans. And
it's maybe a little bit parasitic, but that might his +1 target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with power and toughness 3/3 permanently. Like it just happens. It's just turned into that thing. And that's a +1 too. That's pretty good as well. And then -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. And it's artifact or creature you control for a creature, so you can swap that food token for someone's creature.
that +1 is not till end of turn. I just read that right now, hard.
That's just the turn
permanent.
that it just permanently works. So like in Commander, so the food thing
There's
is
your Questing
kind of
Beast going away.
underwhelming, but yeah.
Suck it, Questing Beast. No, Questing Beast is going to be in this deck. Is what it's going to be.
But it's only 3 mana. I mean, like that's a really solid Planeswalker too, I think.
We have one more.
There's also the Royal
Twins.
Scions. Yeah.
So the Royal Scions are 1 blue and a red for legendary Planeswalker Will and Rowan. 5 loyalty, +1, draw a card and discard a card.
Deck fade.
Second +1, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn. And then they're -8. Draw 4 cards. When you do, the Royal Scions deal damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. Jorian decks are going to like this.
I played a Will and Rowan deck they were the commanders, and it was Super Friends deck. I played it last week. And I would imagine this will go in that deck for sure.
I love the art on both versions of this card. The one that will come in the normal pack and the collector pack.
My collector pack's going to be garbage. I have this horrible feeling right now.
I didn't I wound up, I went to the shop this week and I didn't pre-order those because I wound up pre-ordering the 4 Brawl decks.
Yeah.
Okay. I pre-ordered the Brawl and...
Did you?
Yeah, I might have spent way too much money. But I'm excited.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's toys. Toys for us. Because we don't get anything now until January. This is our last set review show now.
Don't say that. Watch, in like 2 weeks from now, they'll announce Battle Bond 2 or something.
It wouldn't shock me to have them announce something in
the November
slot. I don't think it'll be a full set, but who knows. But at the very least, we shouldn't have a set review now for several months, even then.
Thank you.
All I gotta say is,
thank you.
When we go in and do our Thero set review, if Elspeth's not in there, you're going to hear me throwing a fit hard.
We might have a weird plan. We won't announce it yet, but we'll say there's something in the works that might be an interesting set review concept for Theros.
Yes. And Chris looks bamboozled because he doesn't know about this.
Because I don't go on Slack or something stupid.
We'll tell you later. But this could be kind of a cool thing. We were kind of kicking around ideas, so we'll talk about more as that gets closer. But that's not until January. So overall, Throne of Eldraine, what are you guys' thoughts?
I'm happy it's not Ravnica, and that's my favorite plane. So
I was getting a little burned out from Ravnica, although I will definitely say War of the Spark was awesome, and it was great to go through. But I'm glad to be away from it now. I think though, like there's more cards. I mean, I won't say War of the Spark because there's so many weird Planeswalker things in there, but like there's more cards in this set that I'm putting in decks than probably any standard set in a few years, other than maybe War of the Spark or maybe Dominaria, both of which were crazy good for Commander. But there's a lot of stuff in this set.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's a lot of stuff I want to add, and I'm still not even done doing like Modern Horizons edition, so I just think I'll skip those and go right to this one.
This could very easily have been Lorwyn. This could have been Return to Lorwyn, I think. The world isn't that much different.
A lot of non-human stuff.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, very nice callbacks to it without being Lorwyn.
Yes. Yeah, I like the plane too so far. It's very interesting. I like seeing Garruk get his juju back. So I'm happy.
The one Planeswalker that was printed with an ability that just kills a Planeswalker, and he has never killed a Planeswalker.
Yes, right. He's the one who has him. He hasn't. He killed Vranos.
Who?
He's never had a card. He was a guy. He was in like one of the Micro Prose games or something, the iPad game, whatever it was. He was like one of the storyline characters from there, and Garruk killed him. That's I think the only one that we've seen in anything. And he wasn't even a real character, so that's no huge loss.
He wasn't a real character. You're not a real character.
So yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm looking forward to playing it, and I'm looking forward. We've got a pretty busy a year coming up next year with Theros coming back and Zendikar coming back.
And the new set.
I don't think I'm getting any Eldrazi and Zendikar, though. Makes me very mad.
I would bet we do. I bet there's a couple, like, it'll be like the
Remnants.
The creature in the Black Lagoon, like some monster that's like...
Because there's still one, aside from Emrakul, one of the two Elf Titans is alive, technically, isn't it?
I think they were...
Because I know Chandra killed Kozilek, and I don't know how Ulamog died.
I think it was the same thing, but like I don't know if they're really dead either. I think there was some stuff with Ugin there where he was talking about how that isn't really their true form.
I love how someone I read, they gave life to what Eldrazi are. They're like, imagine that your world is a fish tank and you're a fish, and you stick your hand in there.
That's the Titan that you see.
That's a Titan. You don't see the rest of it.
Yeah. So I agree. There could be a lot, but I would bet we don't see Eldrazi other than like maybe, hey, if the Betrays survive, then it's now a creature that lives in the swamp and is talked about as some kind of monster because everyone, that kind of thing. But I would bet we don't get many because people just wanted to go back to Adventure World.
But I kind of do awesome. Too. I love Eldrazi.
Well, I don't mind Eldrazi, but we had just plane after plane after plane of like just giant world-ending threats.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to take a breather now between Eldraine and hopefully Zendikar and maybe even Theros, where we're just going to get kind of small-scale stories. Hopefully Elspeth stuff.
I hope Erebos
sure
and Heliod just get nuked.
Well, the thing with
I want them to fusion dance and become one.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. There's certainly a lot of things that seem to indicate Devotion's coming back, given how many of these cards have like 3 or 4 colored mana symbols on them.
Yeah,
so.
plus all the hybrid stuff, or even the War of the Spark stuff, all those Planeswalkers.
All the Night Elemental Legends from the core set that were all like 3 or 4 mana symbols in those as well. So there's a lot of stuff that makes it feel like it's Devotion-y.
Yeah.
So for sure, looking forward to that. Okay, that is going to wrap up this episode of Commander Central. Our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod. Licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We're back on Thursday with the Deck Tech. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.